Hi everyone, I have an exclusive discount for Hard Calls listeners to Pendemonium, Pendo's product festival. I would like to invite you to join me in Raleigh, North Carolina from March 24th to 26th with an exclusive 30% discount when you use the code HARDCALLS30. That's Hard Calls, all lowercase, and the numbers 30. Get your discounted ticket at pendo.io/Pendemonium. See you there.
I think the hardest call I've ever had to make on people was our product board. We had 3 Riffs, right? And most companies were just going through a lot of redundancies. No one knew what was happening in the market. And so it was hard to promise to the org, we're not going to do this again. This is the first Riff we've ever done. Never do it again. Just stay with us. Then you go through the second. Then you go through the third. And you're trying to get people to believe. You're trying to be transparent and honest and authentic. And you're trying to wrap your arms about them and do it in the fairest way possible. It was one of the proudest leadership moments I've ever had. But also one of the saddest as well, right? But you have to hold yourself together for that and make sure the team that you want to stay believe in it and are fired up. And obviously they're expected to do is more than ever, right? With less resource. We went from 50 in my team to 18. Really, that was the hardest thing I've had to do, I think, emotionally.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Hard Calls. On today's show, I am so excited to talk to Dave Killeen, our Field Chief Product Officer for EMEA at Pendo. I know Dave, and if you know Dave, you know he is a self-proclaimed product geek. I think we probably have that in common, who embodies an amazing mix of energy, strategy, and evangelism. I am so lucky to work with Dave, and I'm so excited to talk with Dave today. He has spent 25 years leading product teams across the globe. He has led teams at Product Board, Bumble, the BBC, and Mail Online. Dave brings infectious curiosity. If you've ever seen him live, I know that you are so excited to hear him talk again today because he's passionate about the right tools and how they can help product teams and help us all to think more deeply, move faster, and deliver impact at scale. So this is especially true in this era of AI. Dave is also the host of a podcast called the Vibe PM podcast, where he explores new use cases and he actually demos hands-on new AI tools. Dave, welcome to the show today.
Thanks so much, Trisha, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's going to be so fun. You are one person of few who can match and maybe top my energy.
Oh, that's a challenge. I'll take it on. Okay,
Dave, so you know this podcast well, and it is called Hard Calls. It's called Hard Calls because as product leaders, that's our job. We get squeezed. Customers want one thing. Our CEO and board want another. Our salesperson has the most important, highest revenue deal of all time. And here we are stuck making the hard call. So I'd like to kick off today with you sharing with us what is one of the hardest calls you've had to make in your career.
Okay. We were talking before this podcast, actually, and it's like trying to pick your favorite child, like which of the hard calls you've had to make, and there's so many, right? And I joke is why I've got so little hair left. But I think one of the hardest calls I've had to make, which is less on the product side, but is like I left Product Board back in March 24, and I had 3 months like paid, was it redundancy, and I had all this time to kind of, it was March time to go outside, get fit, take some time off, right? And did I do that? No. What I did was, you probably know the story, but I basically stayed in this room for 3 months, pretty much every day, apart from Saturday and Sunday, when I wasn't allowed to, faffing and going down rabbit holes with AI. And it was brilliant. My husband was really annoyed with me. He was like, go outside, get out of the house, you're doing my head in. I was like, no, AI, we have to lean into this and see where that puck is going. And so I went down that rabbit hole for 3 months and I thought I'd find a job. But then I started looking, come towards end of those 3 months. And everything I looked at through recruiters was just like not interesting. I felt that company's going to die in the next 2 years. They got no idea where the puck is going, let alone where it's at, Trisha. And so I was discounting everything to the point where exec search firms are coming to on month 6 and going, Dave, you're too precious. You need to take a job. And I just held out. And then Trisha, you came in my inbox and you saw me doing stuff on YouTube and you said, hey, look, you're a bit unhealthily obsessed about all of this. And you've done product for the last 25 years. Do you want to come into Pendo? So I really feel when I talk to others that are unfortunately losing their roles, I'm like, you're very lucky. It's the last thing people want to hear. but like I've got kids, I've got mortgages. But if you have that time at the moment to kind of make use of that time, whether you're working or whether you're unfortunately not, it's a great time to be leaning in and get some sense of where that puck is going. And that's brilliantly positioned me now here at Pendo to be doing the Vibe PM podcast and other things because of that unhealthy obsession with all things AI. But it was hard to convince my husband to hold the course and go, look, I know it's not great. Yes, we'll sell the car. Yes, we'll stop getting flowers in. But ultimately, it's paid off handsomely for me and for Pendo, I hope. And it's been really good. But yeah, a ton of other hard calls we'll try weave into the conversation as we go ahead.
Yeah, well, I love that hard call, and it's atypical, right? It's not the typical hard call where usually guests come on and talk about, a person they really cared about and had done great work for the company, but who couldn't take them forward and scale, or a decision from a product perspective that they had to say no to a important customer and feature. But this one's so special and different because your career is in a different spot than most product leaders right now, which I think is amazing that it does afford you time to stay up to date and play with the latest and greatest tools. And I want to talk more about that today. But I also want to make a point, that I just want to put a pin on the point you just made, which is even if you don't lose your job and become redundant, we as product leaders have got to get hands-on with these tools today. Like, it's a non-negotiable.
100%. And I mean, you'll find we'll talk a lot more about this on this pod, but like ultimately you can, by finding the time, it's a flywheel, right? You will actually save an awful lot more time than the time you're looking for in the first place, right? And it just compounds. And I think if you're using AI in that kind of, efficient and effective way as a sparring and thinking partner, then you will find then more time, right? So you end up, I feel personally, I'm getting 7 days worth of work done in 4 now. As a result of just finding that bit of time up front, I think you can leverage it a lot more effectively and it'll pay very, very handsomely for you.
Yeah, I totally agree. And before we jump into specific tools, because you're an expert on this, and I know our listeners want like the meaty, important things that tell us, why do you even care? Like, sure, it's fun. Sure, it's relevant. Sure, it's where the puck's going. But like, why does it even matter? Getting your hands on with these tools.
I think it's so important. I think it's non-negotiable. It is something that everyone has to get their hands around. And, the analogy I use, and it's kind of what struck me when I had that time off for those first 3 months, is that it's like, you get home after a long day of work and you need to open up the fridge door to see what's inside that you can muscle up for dinner, what ingredients you have to play with, right? And I think most people, I keep saying, they're not doing that. They know it's got potential. They know there's something in there, but you need to make time to open up the fridge door. And from a first principles point of view, just get some sense of like what tools can work for you, right? You know me, I do speech to text. I barely type anymore. I can actually feel my fingers stiffening over the last year. And you start flying through your work, right? You're in deeper state of flow. And so I think once you taste it, once you pick those ingredients out of the fridge and start playing with them, you quickly realize there's no going back. And then you go down and down and down and down the rabbit hole. And ultimately, like I say, you get to that point where you feel you're flying, right? And then when you can start infecting your teams and your teams are on that deeper state of flow collaboratively together, it's just, it's quite different. It's amazing.
So Dave, with that, tell me like one or two of, your favorite tools or tools that have really surprised you. Maybe you weren't expecting before you played with them to get real bang for your buck or really change the way you operate and get, different level of velocity. Share with me one or two of those.
I think basic level, the one I keep banging on about is speech to text. And there's 2 there. There's Flow Voice and then there's superwhisper.com. And one's more simple, one's more complex. And you've got these different modes. So if you're leaving comments on a Google Doc, you can just kind of have a mode for that, which is essentially a prompt that says, take your gobbledygook and then turn it into a succinct comment that's helpful for the recipient. And all these different modes in that app. And then something nice and simple with Flow Voice. That's the basics for me. The rabbit hole I've been going down in the last maybe say 6-7 months, but particularly in the last week, is Claude Code. And we're seeing a lot of traction now, a lot of commentary out there about how Claude Code is there for non-engineering tasks. And Anthropic themselves came out with Claude Cowork just the other week. And it's fantastic, right? There's a huge potential to essentially have Claude Code work with what could have been HTML files, CSS files, JavaScript, TypeScript. Now your text files, right? Here's my Trisha page. Here's my projects. And I've got MCP servers now and they're pulling in my granola transcripts. And I've got MCP servers for Clary, our sales forecasting tool, and for Momentum, our Gong type transcripts. And so everything's now coming in here. and it's on another level. So I've been doing that for maybe the last 8, 9 months, but the last week's been unlocked for me because there's a team called Every, and they're like a content production team, quite small, lean team, but they're seen as a kind of poster child for modern companies in terms of how they work with AI. And they've released a plugin on GitHub called Compound Engineering. And the idea is, you know yourself, right? The more features you add to a product, the more costly and complex that product becomes to build upon. And so with AI, you can flip it, right? So with this plugin, the idea from an engineering point of view is when I finish a task building a feature, it has this thing where it looks back on our dance, Trisha. It looks about what we've learned, and it actually creates a markdown file of those learnings that get called in every time I initiate a new session. And so it's compounding its brilliance from an engineering partner point of view. And so I was on holiday just the other week, and I shouldn't have been thinking about it, but I was like, I've got this PKM system, personal knowledge management system, and I love it. And Claude Code dances on my text files, blah, 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 blah. But, the more I add to it, the more bloody noise it is. It's hard to find stuff, right? I've got the AI in there. Now I've taken the first principles point approach from taking the compound engineering and saying, how can I take that into Claude Code where actually it works with my PKM? So the more I actually talk to it, the more it learns from me, the more information it gets. Oh my God, bonkers.
It's amazing. I was talking to my friend Jay Jenkins yesterday, and Jay's a amazing product manager. He worked with me back at Encino, but he's left and done 2 really small startups. And obviously, in that mode where you're one of just a few employees and you're making big things happen, you're really getting your hands on things. And he was telling me some pretty cool stories, how he was using Granola as well for customer meetings. And customers were either maybe talking about a bug or a feature request or something that they wanted. And he was able to take his transcripts from Granola immediately into Claude Code and actually create the bug fix or the enhancement before he was even off the call, send it, as a PR to his CTO. And before the end of the call, the enhancement or bug was in production and fixed for the customer.
It's bonkers, Trisha. I mean, honestly, I think the challenge for us then becomes, okay, hold on a second. So everything's coming into my system. It's being like this great chief of staff on steroids, caffeined to the hilt, right? How do you orchestrate that at scale yourself, right? So I have, in Cursor, I've got like various different agents working together on my knowledge. My challenge becomes, hold on a second, I've got 6 agents working across my knowledge graph and all these cool recordings and everything else. Like just remembering where you were with them, right? That becomes the bottleneck, I think, now, when it comes to personal knowledge management. But you're absolutely right. It is crazy. I had this thing the other day, which surprised me. I came out of a meeting with my line manager, and basically Cursor was Claude Code was instrumented in a way where it basically wrote the email follow-up for me. And it's like, do you want to send that on to your manager? I was like, oh my God, fantastic. We just developed this new thing, which is like a part of my role is to help our team and the sales team to kind of, between stages 1, stage 2, to make sure that we're really selling the power of Pendo and connecting to business outcomes, right? So important in what we do and what product people do, right? And so I now have a command that looks across all the transcripts and basically makes sure that we're connected to KPIs at stage 1 to stage 2 in our sales cycle. Where we're not, I get the names of the people I need to follow up with. Where we're underselling the capabilities of our Pendo platform, of which we have so much power behind it, right? We're just going in at point solutions. Like, no, there's an opportunity. You're underselling, right? And so, we can give more value to the customer, give them better ROI. And so that for me was hard for the last 6 months. I had to do that manually. And now in my daily planning, I do daily plan, does all of that. 5 minutes later, I have my plan for the day.
I love it. Well, speaking about business outcomes as a product leader, I know this is a topic you and I are passionate about, and I know it's something we spend a lot of time with our customers in the market on, which is everyone knows the higher level business outcome they're trying to drive, right? Are they trying to get new, ARR growth in a new product? Are they trying to reduce churn, through increased stickiness or adoption? Are they trying to reduce support tickets? Like, they all kind of know that. But it is so hard to take that and know how to translate that into North Star metrics and what to measure for a product team to know how to tie their activity to the bigger picture of the company's success. So talk to me a little bit about that. Like, I know you've also used AI to solve this a little bit, and you have opinions on what we should be doing as product leaders and as PMs.
Yeah.
Share a little bit of your incredible wisdom on this topic with us.
Yeah. I mean, it's something I'm massively passionate about. And, I think KPI driver trees are the DNA dollar logic of how you make money as a business and how you connect the product to doing that, right? So, Atlassian came out with their Atlassian State of Product Management report recently, just about maybe 3 months ago, I think it was. And it said the stat, Trisha, 12% of product teams feel that the metrics they report on are connected to business outcomes that the board care about, right? That means 88% of our teams globally are basically feeling, yeah, we're shipping, but does it make a difference? Is it important? Does anyone care? Let alone externally, right?
Yeah, it's
And
like, oh,
and
4 or 5 customers asked for this. It's like, okay, but is that going to actually do anything?
mental, mental. And so I think for me, the reason I am so passionate about this particular thing is it is this kind of comfort blanket, right? There's this stat, isn't there, that I heard before that, the CPO is the shortest lived role in the C-suite, 2.6 years on average. And because I think the consensus in that view is that they basically are lacking that ability to kind of drive the C-suite and align the C-suite around market-centric data, insights, and customer-centric data from within the product. And if you don't do that, everyone will look at you in a C-suite and go, well, they're driving their org by their gut, right? And if they're doing that, I'll tell you what I think they should do next. And before you know it, what happens, my hypothesis is they either resign because they have no relationship, or it's kind of not great, or they get fired. And what's great about Pendo is either way I look at it, it's that sanity blanket, it's that comfort blanket, it's what drives that alignment, more importantly, helping you and your C-suite agree on what not to do. So here comes the KPI driver tree, right? Because if you have that, then you have that DNA dollar logic all codified, and that becomes the guardrails for everything that you do, right? And also, more importantly, for the teams to feel joy in their work, to feel, oh my God, we're making a difference. Yes, we're connected to that important conversation at the top. So I was going to a conference down in Auckland.
It makes PMs feel empowered, because no good PM wants to be told what feature to build, right?
Yeah.
But when it's all bottoms up, you might get a lot of cool features, but not a lot of cool features that actually drive to the strategy or drive to the higher level KPIs or OKRs that you're, trying to drive in the business. So I think when you think about any kind of cascading in the driver tree, like you're talking about, people are afraid, like, oh, are my PMs going to be empowered? But that's what actually empowers them, because there's no driver tree telling you what feature to build. The driver tree is telling you what North Star metric matters at the cascaded level. And now my product managers are, to your point, not just motivated and tied to the company's success, but empowered to make feature level decisions.
Quite. And it is just that, such an alignment tool, isn't it? Right. And very few can argue with you with what you want to do if you've got that kind of that logic in place and codified. And so, yeah, I went down and to Auckland for a conference to product managers, 400 product managers. And the hard thing, when you go to a conference like that and you have a booth and you're hoping people come to you over their coffee break, right? And I thought, hold on a second, what if I vibe coded a KPI driver tree on the plane? And Elon Musk's Starlink, great connection, Claude code fired up, and we pulled it together. And we'll be sharing this actually quite soon in the coming week or so online on my LinkedIn. And basically, it looks at everything that's available around the company and comes up with a starter for 10. Now, of course, it's probabilistic, right? So every time you do it, you get a different KPI driver tree. But where it gets more robust, and that's quite interesting from an AI point of view, is we actually in the app have the AI red team itself. And Trisha, it's hilarious. The AI comes in and goes, Dave, honestly, you think that's a North Star metric? That's riddled with ambiguity. What? And this is a leading indicator? No, it's not. But the AI came up with it, right? But then when the AI red teams itself, the quality goes up such a level, Trisha. And it's so interesting.
The AI is giving the AI a hard time. But you know what? Like, that makes sense, because you could come up with a North Star metric and I might not like it, and I might, give you a hard time about it. And we would go back and forth and back and forth. And what we would end up with would be better than what I came up with to start or what you came up with to start. And honestly, agents are the same way. Like, They have the same kind of reasoning skills, and going back and forth is how you get to a great result. You don't just take the first
Yeah.
result from your first prompt,
No.
that you get, just like you don't just take the first idea that someone on your team gives you.
And you're absolutely right. And I think treating them like that, right? Having that agent and sub-agent architecture so you can actually make what's happening a little bit more deterministic. But yeah, we've shown it to a few other leaders and they'll be like, oh my God, like even just today, went to see a large grocery retailer here in the UK this morning. And they're like, this is really helpful. We've spent weeks going back, like you say, Trisha, back and forth, debating. And this is educating us about how we should see things. And maybe it's coming up with KPIs we haven't thought about before. So yeah, I'm TLDR, hugely passionate about it. And I think Pendo plays such a role in that, right? Because once you've got that pulled together, then the power of Pendo pushes on those metrics. And then you can see exactly where you're winning and where you might need to lean in more to.
I love it. So, right, you've talked about voice to text as a huge time saving hack. You've talked about vibe coding in terms of a velocity and really time to value hack. But as product people, product sense and product taste. And when I say those things, product sense to me is just like knowing your customer and customer value, and to an extreme that you really, really know and can make good judgment calls, based on that job to be done and the customer value. And when I think about product taste, it's a little bit more of like the amazing minutia detail that delights a user every day. I know you talk about this and I think about this a lot, which is how does AI help us or hurt us?
Yeah.
As it comes to relying on either product sense or product taste.
Yeah. I was talking with another product leader recently who said, I've just got into vibe coding and they were in Gemini AI Studio and they kind of vibe coded something in like an hour, which would have taken a team like, a month to do. And then they're like, oh, that's great. Thank you very much for that. And by the way, Gemini, can you come up with a 6-month roadmap for me, please? And what we should do next? Thank you. Love you. And then it does. And Ben goes, hey, Gemini, can you now implement that for me? And it gets it done in about 45 minutes. Like where this 6-month roadmap idea comes from, I have no idea. But surely you'd think Gemini knows it's not going to be 6 months. But and this whole thing turns into a Frankenstein, right? Yeah, it's gone off the rails completely. And I think, yeah, to your point, that's where that taste piece kicks in. You have to make sure that you're really watching it and being quite ruthless, despite having all of this power at your hands now. Just being really ruthless about what it is you're asking for and making sure that it really does pop from a delight perspective, right? And it's just, I see so many people vibe coding stuff for the sake of doing it. And it's like, people on Twitter going, yeah, look at this, I vibe coded a Kanban board. And it's just, really? Like, is that all you can come up with? You need to have that taste and second guess that gut piece. And that comes from experience and a good, strong appreciation for kind of, what works and pops. And that can't be replaced by AI. So it's a partner, right? It's a partner. But my Lord, have I been surprised with some of the ideas that it has come up with where my taste is then able to judge that and go, yes, you're on the money. Thank you. So yeah, taste.
I love it. So tell me, in this rapid prototyping or even vibe coding beyond prototyping world, assuming we've got amazing product sense, we've got amazing product taste, and we're using all these productivity tools, how in this world do we actually get the proper feedback at scale and do discovery at scale? Because like some of the older mechanisms of feedback and discovery are hard to do quickly to keep up with the pace when you're using all these tools. How's this changing?
I think there's two things, right? At one end of the spectrum, where you go and meet a customer on a call, or you would, go to see them, rather than doing an interview with vibe coding, we can literally actually vibe code it there and then. Get their feedback, take it on board, suck in the granola transcript, and go, right, okay, what can we do with this? What do you think of this, Trisha? And so I think that's a different way of doing it in the kind of the less scalable way, but quite an interesting angle, I think. And then ultimately, I think, what we're doing here at Pendo, of course, is we allow you to collect that at scale from all your different systems and bring that together. And I think being able to process that through AI and having that taste element on top of it, right, is just so powerful and so effective. And I think then kind of going beyond that, where we're going, I think, is being able to tailor interfaces, being able to actually run those experiments at scale per segment, offered up through Pendo, for example, right, in the UI, I think that's fantastic, right? So that becomes, mini experiments that actually can be surfaced to folk and to get their feedback and see how they're using things. So I think that whole space is fascinating. And you think about like some people are doing now where you can actually create like virtual cohorts of people. They're not even real people, but they're personas that actually have, valid opinions, right? And how do you throw concepts and ideas at them? There's some really interesting startups in the space doing that right now. So I think this whole space is fascinating. It's only going to give us an awful lot more taste, and far greater impact as teams.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think another approach too is if you're vibe coding and you're able to go this fast, I mean, experimentation looks totally different, right? I mean, you could put 5 different experiences between feature flags and rolled it out to different, subsegments of your population, whether that's based on role, like some sort of metadata, or actually usage analytics, first time users, experienced users, admins, things like that.
Right.
And I think like it's another really effective way. And that might have been really hard to do. I mean, maybe not for like a button change or a wording change, but that was pretty hard to do at scale quickly before, because you had to use your engineering team to actually build every single one of those experiences. But
I
when you're
agree.
able to vibe code them, like it's
Oh,
pretty cool.
it's so cool. I mean, like, go back to the KPI driver tree idea, right? So, I've been banging on about this for a while. I think I'm massively passionate about it. And I think, there's something in it. But like what I'm now doing is I put this onto Vercel and there's no PII data in it. But basically, I'm releasing it to those people down in Auckland that sign up to it, right? And I'm going to use Pendo. It's in there now. I've got all my agent analytics in there. I've got all my guides in there. I've got everything in there. And I'm going to go and get the quant data, the visual data, everything, and use that as a way to bring it back into the business and say, look, let's build this, right? So I think we are just all, not just people like me, but every function across the org, so much more empowered now to bring their creativity to life and have that sparring partner that can actually give them the confidence to march forward with their ideas, right? So it's just so good. So good.
Is. So, I mean, fast forward for our listeners, they start utilizing a lot of these tools that you're talking about. They free up their time. What do we do with all this free time, Dave?
Oh, so I read this book called The Brain at Rest, and I've been a bit of a workaholic over the last 20 years, 25 years. And the Brain at Rest basically talks about we have the default mode network and we have the executive mode network. And so unfortunately, for most of society over the last maybe 10 years, we've been very much in the executive mode network where it's all task-based work and TV watching, all that kind of stuff, and social and all mobile, blah, blah, blah. And then we don't have enough time for the default mode network, which is where our creativity flourishes, right? So the book I read on holiday, and it was a bit of an epiphany for me because one view on AI for organizations and individuals is that, well, look, just get more done. Keep working your ass off for 5 days a week, 12 hours a day, whatever. And it says, through science, no. You find some time with science backing it up to go outside, go for a walk in the forest, hug a tree, and cold water swimming, watch the blue sky, the shape of the clouds, just get some default mode network going. And then what happens is then all your ideas will flourish. And so I think what we should be doing is not spending as much time with work. Find time for those breaks to let those ideas flourish and then leverage into the AI in a more productive way to have that as a true sparring partner to extend your thinking. And I think that's where we should be. I hope that's where people get to. But I think the danger with AI is that we're just a bit lazy about the whole thing. And we just keep running and just do not make time for what is such a critical part of our creative thinking. So yeah, I would advocate ChatGPT, a summary of The Brain at Rest to anyone watching. Buy the book. It's such a game changer. Encourage your org to embrace the ideas.
And so tell me, Dave, like that obviously comes from lessons learned from you where maybe in one of your past roles, you didn't give yourself enough time to think. So, any other little nuggets of wisdom from any of your past roles or other stories you want to share with our listeners before we finish?
Yeah. I mean, look, I would say to those earlier in the career, just lean in with your gut and what you believe. Back to your taste comment, right? I remember being at the Daily Mail newspaper group here in the UK. Before the internet was even a thing, really, we're trying to figure out as a bunch of geeks, like, what do we do with these paper brands? And we had this thing like, blogging was taking off at the time. And we're like, well, people are commenting on blog posts. Can we convince the editors of the newspaper to let people comment on articles rather than like letters to the editor, right? That was sacrilege, right? But we believed it was going to be something quite interesting. Our hypothesis was people might actually be more interested in people commenting than the author writing, the journalist writing the piece of content. And it turned out they were. And so, but we culturally trying to do that at a young age in my career, it was really hard. You're trying to convince these fuddy-duddies on the future and the potential of the internet. And then we created clickbait at the Mail Online. And so, again, hard to do, right? But like, I just think to people, you've got good taste. You believe in something. Use AI to bring the stories to life. Use Pendo or something similar to get the evidence in to build out your case. That's definitely one thing. I've always stuck by my guns since, because I just felt that actually, it's important to do so. And if you've got a good argument, but now, God, I wish back then I had something like AI to bring these ideas and concepts to life. I think, what else? This people issue has been discussed before in this podcast, but I think the hardest call I've ever had to make on people was our product board. We had 3 Riffs, right? And most companies were just going through a lot of redundancies. No one knew what was happening in the market. And so it was hard to promise to the org, we're not going to do this again. This is the first Riff we've ever done. Never do it again. Just stay with us. Then you go through the second. Then you go through the third. And you're trying to get people to believe. You're trying to be transparent and honest and authentic. And you're trying to wrap your arms about them and do it in the fairest way possible. It was one of the proudest leadership moments I've ever had. But also one of the saddest as well, right? But you have to hold yourself together for that and make sure the team that you want to stay believe in it and are fired up. And obviously they're expected to do is more than ever, right? With less resource. We went from 50 in my team to 18. Really, that was the hardest thing I've had to do, I think, emotionally. And then product-wise, killing products that, just aren't going anywhere, despite everyone, all the execs wanting them to win in that space. So lots and lots and lots of hard calls. I think that's why I've got so little hair.
Yeah, it's the best and hardest part of our job is making those hard calls. Whether it's people, process, product, it's what makes the job fun and challenging, but it's also what makes the job hard. So
my grandmother once asked me, "Hey Dave, what is it that you do?" Because your mother's not able to tell me, and so I was like, "Look, Granny, what I do is I play whack-a-mole. And I'm at the fairground every day and I'm getting these obstacles popping up left, right, and center. And you're like, boom, got it. You're nearly thinking, Trisha, as creatively around your hard calls as you are around your roadmap and market. Yeah. And I think it's perversely a very interesting role, product leadership, but also, very, very challenging, but rewarding.
It is. Well, Dave, thank you so much for joining Hard Calls today. Even a bigger thank you to you for joining Pendo and the impact that you're having, not just at Pendo, but for all of us as product leaders in our product community. For Dave and I both, a big part of what gets us up in the morning is spending time with the overall product community. That's why we have this podcast here today. And so, Dave, I just thank you for all you're doing for the craft and for the community. Thanks.
Thank you, Trisha. And thank you for bringing me into Pendo as well. Thank you so much. Massive dent for me. I really believe it. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you for listening to Hard Calls, the product podcast where we share best practices and all the things you need to succeed. If you enjoyed the show today, share it with your friends and come back for more.